The one suffering from exhaustion. Life beating you down so you still playing cautious. I need you to search deep inside of your conscience. Unleash whatever monsters are keeping you from your progress. I know that you gon' find a way. Never give up. Tomorrow could be the brightest day. Follow the light. I promise you gon' find a way. I know that you gon' find your way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of awesome things on that Lacerda interview we can talk about, for sure.
And it's just something for, it's just like entertaining also, because I'm sure people get tired of hearing the echo chamber of political bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Talk about some reptilian aliens for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to the depths not a lot of people like to go to.
Right. Well, and even if you don't believe in it, even if you don't think that it might be real, it's still interesting. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about it, because it's pretty awesome. Some of the stuff in that interview is pretty awesome.
Right. And like some of it makes sense. You're like, okay, that makes sense.
Right. Like there was no such thing as magic. That it was just science we didn't understand. I really like that idea.
Yeah. Right. Because literally that's what magic is. It's just science that we don't understand yet.
Right.
Take us back 500 years ago with our phone, and would be wizards and be burned alive at the stake,
Exactly.
And all it is like, what, you never heard of Google? Yeah, it's just funny.
Well, what do you think about the tunnels, like the surface entry things that Lacerda was talking about? So there was all these tunnels. That's how she made it to the surface. Like the teenager aliens weren't allowed to go up to the surface yet because they couldn't do the cloaking to hide themselves. But she said if we tried to go find one, we probably couldn't, and that we really shouldn't. I thought that part was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that there's some. So I think they even made a movie about something like that. But you ever heard the the article on when those? I think it was people, they were like hiking this mountain or something, and they found their stuff, and then they found marks in the ground, but they never found the bodies.
Wow, that's trippy.
Yeah, like because there's a lot of disappearances. If you look on a map of all of the missing people reports, it's a lot of it is around cavern systems.
Okay.
And it's a very interesting deal, like the Appalachians. Also they were. I can't remember if they said it in the Lacerda interview or not, but it is national parks.
Okay.
So a lot of these entrances and a lot of these places are in national parks.
That'd be pretty smart, because it's not highly populated, and it'd be an easy way to hide an entrance.
Right. Like we look at national parks as like, what? How do you regulate national forests when nobody owns it? But that would make sense that you would regulate a national park if you are trying to hide something.
Yes. Well, and they have those cartels like growing pot on national forests because it's easier to hide it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So in that Lacerda interview too, it said, say you find one of those tunnels, and it could be like a artificial mine shaft looking thing. The walls get smoother as you go down. You could feel a rush of warm air. Then you could get to a round room with elevators. And then she said something like, then we're already aware that you are here. And if you have any sense, you would like run away because you shouldn't be here.
Right.
And so I don't know, those people going missing, she also said they all eat flesh too. So are they capturing people and eating them?
Yeah, like I don't see why it's out of the realm of possibility that we are actual food to something. because everything on this planet is food to something else. We are the apex predator to where we just haven't experienced that yet. But literally everything below us is all food
Right.
to something else. We are the only ones that, you know what I mean, aren't really on, on the menu for really all the creatures on this planet, because they have no way of hunting us, farming us, anything like that, because we are so far, technological wise advanced. Now, if we had no technology, we'd be fair game to a lot of predators.
Right. Predators were eating us before we had guns and weapons. So, like, the lions could eat us if we had no weapons.
Yeah. Right. Right. So yeah, so that's really interesting on how you know if we are a food source. So that Lacerda interview really got me thinking about us as a product,
Yes.
and it makes things that we do make more sense,
Okay.
because it's like, you know all this like unhealthy food that we're eating
R-
all the time,
right.
right? All these GMOs in our foods and stuff. It's like, well, why would you put that in there? Now I understand, like, to yield more crop
Like how we make the
amounts.
unnatural chickens with
Yeah,
big
right,
bodies that can't walk around or hold themselves up.
right,
And the
right,
chicken breasts
right.
at the store are not supposed to be that big.
Um, it's kind of like so if you've ever eaten like elk or deer
Yes.
or something, like that has more of a gamey taste to
Mm-hmm.
it because it's more lean meat.
Right.
Um, cows and and farm animals, they have more fat on them, so they taste different,
Yes.
and that fat is what tastes good with the so it's a good fat meat ratio, and so maybe that's like, yeah, we aren't like the leanest animals, whatever, but maybe we're not meant to be, because like we taste better with a little bit of fat on us.
Right.
However crazy that sounds, but um, yeah, it's yeah, and who's to say that we're not? If there is a higher species above us, why can't we be their source of food?
Right. Well, and producing all this mass producing of animals for food, it doesn't seem like the smartest plan in the long run.
Right.
You know, I watched this movie called Okja. Have you ever seen Okja? It's like it's
Uh.
super crazy. So, um, they have this contest, right, to grow this like super pig because that's going to be like the food of the future because you could grow one super pig and it feeds so many people. And it was just really like a damning example of factory farming, I guess is what the movie's
Okay.
supposed to be about, but it is pretty interesting. So they send out these super pigs all around the world, and it's your job to like raise a super pig, and like the best super pig's going to win the contest at the end. But then all these people like start caring for their super pigs. This little girl cares for her super pig, Okja, and they come and try to take the pig away. And so it's pretty interesting movie.
Yeah, we when we like it, it's a little harvest, right? When we move cows around, the reason why farming or our, especially when it comes to like our food, like like our meat food, not like our vegetarian crop
Right.
food, because we have figured a way to industrialize it. So we can have beef all year round all the time. You know, Before all of this, it was probably by season, whenever, you know, the ranchers got the cows together, produced all that meat, and then people just bought meat, froze what they didn't eat, and then, maybe you bought hamburger or steak, once every month or something, because that's when the shipments came
Right.
in.
You weren't having steak dinner every night.
Right, right. But now it's just so much of it everywhere that we don't really think about it, and we just have steak all the time.
Well, and I'm not sure the exact statistics, but it was something like the amount of grain, food, and water it takes to feed a cow. You could use that grain and feed like 50 people to produce like 1 pound of beef or something outrageous like that. I don't know the exact statistics,
Yeah,
but it's something like that, like taking all that food and water and giving it to people instead of trying to produce all this beef that produce all this waste and
right,
so on and so on. It seems kind of crazy that we're doing that because the main idea of, I guess, sustainable meat would be you had a farm somewhere, you raise a cow, or a few cows, and then, like you said, you kill one and then you have the meat for a year. So that's not like this big giant system of nobody's doing stuff for themselves. Someone else is making the meat for you on a large scale.
right. Yeah, right, right. Yeah, it's I think it was in the scientific journal they post or they did an article um about how we have like 60 cycles of farming left. Now, I don't know if one cycle equals a year or if they do a couple cycles a year. I'm not really sure on the farming thing, but they were saying something like 60 cycles left, and it was because when we plant
Right.
crops, um, and then we harvest them, right? Well, one, we do it different because we're trying to get the most yield out of it, and that's where GMOs come in.
Yes.
Also, it kind of messes with the structure, the molecular structure of say that wheat, to where our bodies have a hard time digesting it because it is something that we're not used to. So that's why, like, here in America, carbs is a bad thing, right? Carbs make you gain weight. Carbs are
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy. If you sit and eat a bunch of like pasta and whatever, and that's why they have like those like keto diets
Right.
and whatever.
High protein,
Now,
high fat.
now, yeah. Now, other places, say like in Italy, where they grow their wheat different, they can sit and eat pasta every day and be somewhat fit because their body has learned to break down their specific wheat, because it is growing differently, probably more naturally,
Hmm.
because they're trying to feed less people.
Well, what happens
You
after
know,
the 60 cycles you're talking about? There's no more, you're not able to grow stuff anymore.
right? So that's what they're saying is that, like, so the nutrients in the soil are being stripped every single process, right? And I guess it takes like, I don't know, I can't think of the number. It was like 100 years for a centimeter of nutrients. So for us to go back to like say 2 inches of nutrient rich soil, it take 1,000 years or whatever.
Well, I think there is some way to plant ground cover crops in between time that helps revive the nutrient of the soil. So, say you're going to plant corn, then you plant some ground cover crop in the off season to help with that. But I'm sure that you're right about you just can't keep doing that forever.
Yeah, like so with like this industrialized farming, they were saying that the issue was, so back in the day it was wherever you grew your crop, you would the following year you would move your cows into that land and you would plant your crops where the
Right.
cows were. And then you keep that cycle going,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the cows graze and then they poop in that area, and then that's what fills the soil with nutrients, and then you keep rotating it. But because of America, or just like industrialization, it costs more money to do that, so they just kept what they were doing, and it kind of fucked them in the long
Well,
run.
yeah, because back in the day, everyone could be growing their own stuff. And then it got away from that to where there's a very, very small percentage of farmers growing stuff for everyone.
Yeah, right, right. Like when we were driving to
Right.
Burlington, on Saturday. Like all those fields, they probably never have cows in them. They probably just harvest and then replant, harvest, replant, harvest, replant.
Yeah, or rotate and let something lay dormant for like a season, maybe.
Right, right. And, that land probably hasn't been treated that way in thousands of years. So, it might have a good foot of nutrient rich soil that could last, 300 cycles. But now that we've been doing it over and over and over, we're like running short on the cycles.
And that's where all those GMOs come in, and pesticides
And that's where all
and
those GMOs
chemicals you spray on it, because we don't have the natural resources to do it naturally, to produce that much.
And
because if you've ever tried gardening in your backyard, it's hard as shit to like come up with, enough vegetables. Like, you couldn't live off the vegetables from your back garden unless you got super serious about it and plan like a whole ton of stuff. So, I've gardened before, and you put in all this effort, all this work, everything, you come up with like a handful of tomatoes. So it's like, it's awesome, it's fun, it's kind of an experiment, but it's not like gardening your whole food source.
yeah, it's like not like you go to like a fruit orchard and you see rows and rows of trees and like if I could just grow one of these in my backyard, that'd be, but it necessarily doesn't work that way. Yeah, right. Unless we were taught a better system how to do it, and it was passed down generation from generation. But I think we've like losing.
Yeah, we're losing a lot of that for sure. We could start something now.
Right.
We could start a little farm now, teach the younger generation how to do that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say if that would be helpful or not for where the future's going right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. They're talking what is it, like hydroponic hydro farming.
Yeah, and that's hard too. That is very hard.
And that's hard too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like the weird dilemma that we're facing as humans right now. And there's a lot of people that kind of like throw it up and be like, well, that's, if that was really serious, maybe we'd be saying more things about it. But then again, it's like, if it was serious, would you care?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or do you think like you can get food from the store forever? Do you think that whole system of I just get what I need from other people is going to last forever?
Right. And if you think about it, how we have like changed the introduction of like this Beyond Meat or this lab grown meat.
Oh yeah, that's scary to me. That's crazy, filled with hormones and
it's very
crazy stuff.
Right.
We don't even know what is in that.
So right when this pandemic happened, I went to the store, and that was the only meat that was left. It was expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And but I bought it anyway, and I made tacos with it. And it has like this chemical taste to it. It's weird.
I've tried some like vegetarian meat like substitutes before too. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's like I'd rather have like a bean patty than I would that, artificial meat patty.
Right. And it's kind of a strange idea. It's like you're a vegetarian, but you're going to eat something like shaped like a hot dog or shaped like a chicken patty.
Right. And it looks like it. It kind of smells like meat. Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, right. And you're a vegetarian, being like,
I'm going to eat a fake chicken nugget.
Right. When people really don't realize that how many animals you kill when you harvest a crop.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? All of like the rodents and the little mammals that that live in those fields and whatnot. You're like, all that goes into the.
But I think they're kind of living like a free existence until you kill them. Whereas like that factory farming argument against that is that they're all crammed into a terrible life and tortured endlessly until their death. So.
Yeah, you should really Because you haven't watched that Super Size
I
Me
don't think
2
I
yet,
watched the
right?
Super Size Me 2.
Yeah, it is. It's a good insight to big
Yeah,
agriculture and how corrupt the
right.
system is. Like, it's literally 3 companies run our entire food. Like, it's like Tyson, Purdue, and Pepperidge Farms or
Okay.
something. They control like 90% of the meat that is in our stores.
Well, and there was a
It's
big ag
crazy.
gag thing, if you remember that, like in the last couple of years, where they made all these laws that, because all these activist people were going in, pretending to get jobs on these farms and filming like horrendous things at these factory farms. So they actually went and made all these
Oh,
laws
yep.
that make it actually illegal for the people to go film this. Instead of making it illegal to like abuse animals, they
Yeah.
make it illegal for you to videotape inside their place.
That was on they passed that through the
Oh, great.
Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was because that was deemed an act
Yeah.
of terrorism because you're interfering with
Food production.
food production and United States agriculture, which everybody eats. So if you fuck with the food, you're actually endangering the lives of all your Americans. So you're deemed a terrorist. So those PD videos do no longer exist.
Well, yeah.
Because like you're saying, instead of changing the regulations on how they treat these animals, they just said, well, no one's coming in here and exposing any more
Well, and it
bullshit.
comes out, and the people who own these places like, this is terrible, this is awful, we had no idea this was going on in our place. Like, if they were smart and if they really gave a shit, they would have the most high-tech video surveillance systems of their own choosing at their place to monitor their own workers. I mean, if that was really what they
Right.
wanted, then that's what would happen. You would actually be wanting to have video surveillance at your factory farm.
Yep. But your agenda is different. So, like, now we don't know what goes on there because it is under law illegal to videotape it. So now it's
Yep.
even more dangerous. Obama.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Obama.
Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Bush. Hooking up. So wild. Yeah, so going back to like that Lacerda thing, like, how they were talking about how they so basically how they were here because those are like the original
Right.
reptilians. And they were here as an evolutionary species of reptiles, like
Yes.
dinosaurs and whatever. And they were the evolution of that. And they've been a species for millions and millions of years.
And then they had a war with the Oleum, 4,000 years ago, they said. And then those creatures left, and then they considered it a victory. The reptilians, they considered a victory. Then they said, well, we're not finding, because then the guy was like, well, why don't we find skeletons of you and cadavers and all this stuff. And it was interesting because then that Lacerda was saying, well, you guys are putting the wrong bones together. You find these bones and you think it's another creature, and all these things in the museum are incorrect because you're just like making up new creatures that aren't even really real. And if the bone is missing, you just like make it up, make a new bone to add into the thing. So you're just like, everything is incorrect.
Yep. Something interesting on that. So when I first heard that, I got thinking, like, okay, what if dinosaurs are fake, right? And so that led me down a rabbit hole. So that led me to flat Earth. Because there are groups of people out there that do believe that dinosaurs are faked.
Just
they
like
are all it's a myth, right? And creationists, the ones that believe that we were created 2,000 years ago or whatever, compared to
Right.
evolutionists,
That everything's
right?
billions of years old.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
right. So diving down that rabbit hole of dinosaurs being fake, it led me to uh, China has been, I guess, faking dinosaur fossils
Wow.
forever.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Um, because they are the country
But
of
what would be the
replica.
point of that?
you
Like,
know,
why would we want to pretend that there were dinosaurs?
um, no, exactly. The thing that I've come up with
Mm-hmm.
is if that's real, then it's just to help control the history.
Okay.
Because if you control the history, you control the future. So if you make up, say, like this like dinosaur
Mm-hmm.
story and whatever, then um, uh, you know because you don't want to get wrapped up in your own lies,
Okay.
right? So you have to, uh, you know, maybe the dinosaur thing was an answer to something, right? Where it's like, well, what
Mm-hmm.
was here before us? Well, if you say, well, before us
Because
there
they
was
don't want us to
dinosaurs.
believe
You know what I
in
mean?
the giant people theory. So
Yeah.
maybe it's tied into
Right.
that
Right.
because maybe
Right. Right.
those were just like pets to the giant people. So
Yeah.
like a T-Rex is like a
Um,
dog size to a giant.
and maybe some of those bones that are like on T Rexes and stuff
There
are
you
actually
go.
human bones, but
That
they
makes
don't
more
want to say
sense.
that. And they're like, yeah, well, we need, it. We'll just say it was
Mm-hmm.
giant reptiles because obviously it can't be
Okay.
insects, and it can't be, because insects don't have bones, right? They have an exoskeleton. It can't be. I mean, some of the dinosaurs. So now they are saying that dinosaurs were more like birds. So now they're
Yeah.
changing the story. You know what I mean? Where like T Rex actually had feathers and was
Well, and I
colorful.
never bought that thing.
Um,
Dinosaur bones are the fossil fuels. That's crazy to me. Like the
that
oil,
that
that fossil
that's
fuel
weird,
thing
huh?
is like this never ending, like it there's something like that's reproducing this oil in the earth. It's not coming from dinosaur bones. I just think that's nuts.
Yeah. Um, Me and my brother-in-law were talking one time, and we're making this joke about how what if T Rexes were like giant
Yes.
chickens because they're just big
Mhm.
and dumbs. You know what I mean? They're just going around. Here's something super interesting too. Diving down that whole dinosaurs is fake. When you think of a T Rex sound, why does it sound like a lion?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'd know what the T-Rex
You know what I
sound
mean?
is. Or like you mean like in
T,
movies or whatever history thing when they try to like
yeah, yeah.
replicate what the
Movies,
T-Rex is? Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, movies have made us think that it
It's all
sounds
like
like a lion.
ferocious.
It's like, come,
Hmm.
yeah, right. And it's like I think they're just creating a
Yes.
boogeyman, you know, where it's like, one, how probable would that body shape be? Like, it would literally be, um, you know, it's not that fast. It would have to, um,
Like those jokes about it doing
it'd
push-ups
be,
and pull-ups and stuff. Like why is its arm so
yeah,
small? Hmm.
right. It it would be more of a scavenger than it would be a predator.
Sure.
You know, how does it mate? You know what I mean? Everything has to reproduce. That body type, it's literally just two big legs and then a
Hmm.
body. That's it. Like, yeah, just doesn't make sense. Or like um, these like brontosauruses and stuff that were like 90 feet tall or whatever. But then again, Devil's Tower. If that was a tree stump, then these creatures actually weren't that big in the world.
Yes. Devil's Tower being a tree stump, I'm completely into that idea. I think it's absolutely believable. I think it's, it's more believable than a lot of things.
Because that structure
It doesn't
make sense.
And the nonsense...
Unless it's a tree stump, then it makes some
way
more sense.
because the narrative that the scientists want us to believe at this point is this is lava. This is like some old volcano, and this is like lava, but that's not what lava looks like. Like, if you see anything about what goes on with lava, it like pours over and then it like hardens and it's all like soft and flowy looking. It's not like that structure at Devil's Tower. So there's like hexagonal shapes that are supposed to be, I think, like 40,000 of these pillars. And the idea is that only plants have a structure like this. Plant fibers would have some similar structure to this. So it's not viable. That's lava to me. And if you think of any of that, like any plateau mountain that we see could be a tree stump. And how that would change our reality is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. And so I just looked up pictures of petrified wood.
That's
exactly
what
Devil's Tower looks like. It's petrified wood.
And there's supposed to be some place in Australia, like right by the ocean. Something Gateway, Heaven's Gateway maybe. I don't even know. But it's a whole structure out by the beach that has that similar thing with those hexagonal shapes, like stepping stones almost.
Yeah, so we're more likely to live in a world like Avatar than we were in a world like what they're painting it out to be.
This idea from this tree stump theory is that we're basically living in this gigantic wasteland with zero oxygen, zero resources, zero water compared to what it was. Basically, I guess one thought is that aliens came here and mined it basically to death. We live in like some mined alien wasteland. Stone. And that's all that's left here. Is like we think our big trees, like even if you go to the redwood forest, I've been there before, fascinating stuff. It's amazing, beautiful giant trees. Those are like child's play compared to what we're talking about right here.
Right. Yeah, this is like the universe's largest Superfund site.
Precisely. And that even the Grand Canyon has just been cut out by some saw, whatever mining equipment that was brought here.
Well, and you made an interesting point too when you were like the mountains were just, that is where you dump all of the stuff that you mine out.
So like a mountain would just be like poured out. Like if you take a dump truck full of sand and pour it out, that's the mountain range. And it's just like the enormity of these dump trucks would be that big. And that would take giants.
And maybe that's why
aliens, and that would take stuff that we don't have here.
Right. Like, so when you have mountain ranges, those were just mining sites.
Right. Mountain ranges would just be mining sites. That's like the mining waste, the tailings. Then the plateau mountains were the chopped off trees. Okay, this place I'm thinking about is called Australian Giants Causeway in Australia. It's very awesome. If you check out these pictures, it's just like exactly what that stump at the Devil's Tower is looking like. It's just like, those pillars coming up, those like hexagonal shapes, something that would be like plant fibrous, not what lava is going to not make perfect like plant fiber shapes coming up out of the earth.
Right. Yeah, these are like, it literally looks like it was like
fascinating stuff.
Yeah, they're like hexagonal columns that just kind of...
You can walk out on them.
and then they all fit together. Yeah, and they
perfectly
all fit
like
together
a
like a puzzle,
honeycomb almost. If you imagine a honeycomb and
like a
all these
honeycomb,
pillars are
right?
fitting together like a honeycomb, does that seem like lava, hardened lava to you? No, that's
Right, right. And it's interesting too how people just accept that as an answer.
moving
Oh yeah,
on.
okay,
That
moving
must
on.
be lava because that's
That's
not
lava.
true.
Moving
Because
on.
you can see some of these pictures. This guy is standing on these like hexagonal shapes, like they're stairs basically, or they're flat stones, or this whole thing. I mean, it's
Yeah, and
hundreds.
they go up
Yes,
hundreds of feet. Like some of these like are
yes.
literal cliffs. Like
Hmm.
they
And it's
create
the same with
cliffs.
that Devil's Tower. Like people
That's
are rock
crazy.
climbing on those. So that is exactly like my dad got me into this petrified wood when I was a little kid, and that is really interesting to me. The idea of petrified wood, all that stuff. I mean, that's what this Devil's Tower looks like to me.
No, exactly. Right. And if people just like, look up Devil's Tower and
Hmm.
look up Giant's
Yes,
Causeway,
same thing.
it's the same thing.
It's
That
nuts.
is,
Yeah,
and
I'll
it's
send you
like,
this one video
right.
that I
And
watched,
like,
and it was awesome because it showed these cut off, like basically um, these plateaued mountains, and then next to a similar like tree structure. Like, say you go find a tree stump, you could find something in nature that was like a zillion times bigger that is supposed to be a plateau mountain that looks like nearly identical, larger in size.
so what'd be interesting is, how like the whole like karmatic factor to all this, where where they have to like kind of tell us what they're doing, but
Okay,
it's our job
right.
to figure it out. And if we
It's
and if
on
we don't
us.
figure it out,
Okay.
then it's our fault, right? So what if they are putting giant skeletal remains with um,
Hmm.
reptilian remains? So they're taking these two species that they don't want us to know about. They're kind
Yeah.
of merging them together, calling them dinosaurs, and then that's how they get away with the
Well,
karmatic factor. Is they're like, well, we were telling them that they were
yeah.
giant reptiles, but we didn't say that the giants and the reptilians were separate. We're just saying it's one thing, and
Right.
that's what we're making
Yeah,
it
I
as.
would like to believe that there's like forces out there that are not all trying to trick us. I believe there's one set of forces that are trying to trick us with that karma and like I told you so, and you better like listen
Right.
because it's right in front of you, and if you fall for it you're stupid. I think that I would like to believe that not everything more powerful than us is trying to trick us.
Right, right. Um, like in that reptilian thing, right? It
Yes.
lists different species. Like like they
Right.
kind of talk
And
about
that
different
three of them were
species,
super
and
dangerous to
some
humans,
are
and um, all our stories
right,
about abduction, like Lacerda was saying, like if you have been abducted by one of those three people, it's probably not, or one of those three species, you're probably not the ones like in the alien abduction stories because they're gonna murder you and keep you forever. So
right. Yeah, and there are a lot of reports
yes,
of like the
that
cow
is some very
mutilations,
strange stuff. The cow mutilations.
and they don't know, like yeah, it could be just a bunch of
Hmm.
humans doing some weird shit, but also it's like, why would they go out to a field and then mutilate these cows with surgical precision and removing reproductive organs and different
Hmm.
organs and different parts, whatever, when and then leave them in the field like that? Why not just, one, take the whole thing so no evidence is left
Yes.
behind, or two, like, go buy a cow and do that. Like, you don't need to do it this, if it's like a government agency like doing weird experiments, like, you don't have
Hmm.
to leave it in the field
Right.
to leave behind evidence. But if you were like another species, like, what the fuck would you care? You would just do your thing, and then you don't need the carcass or anything, so
Right.
you just leave it, because we do that. Trophy hunting, right? Uh, Humans will go out
Just
and
to
kill
kill it.
something and cut
Yeah.
just to take the horns and leave the entire carcass there. It's like, wow, that is nuts.
That
But
stuff is kind of aggravating to me. Like
that's
you
like,
go kill a whole elephant, just for his
Right.
tusk. Like, that's pretty nasty.
Just for its tusks. Right. Right. Yeah, it's the whole trophy thing. So,
Yes.
have you ever watched like the Predator movies where that's kind of what it is, right? It's kind of like they're like hunting as trophies as, to where, human hunting isn't
It's not
far
far-fetched, but we
fetched.
don't want to think
That's
about stuff like that. And we have put ourselves on like a pedestal. We're like, no, that doesn't happen to us. Mm-hmm.
that doesn't happen, right? But then we watch a movie like The
Mm-hmm.
Game with Ice-T.
I think
You ever
so.
watch
The
that movie?
Game, where they have to go through all these
Where,
trials, and it's like an old time movie, or not old time movie, but a while ago.
yeah, like they go around and I think they
Okay.
pick up homeless people, and they
Like Michael Douglas.
and then like these rich people will go out and they will hunt
Oh, wow.
these homeless people.
Yeah, I don't think I watched that one.
And one of the groups is like this
Okay.
father son duo. Because the father is like teaching the son,
Mm-hmm.
tradition,
Yeah.
whatever, and the son's like young, and so they just let these homeless people out in, they own a bunch of land, and they let these homeless people out in the land, whatever, and then they have to survive,
Mm-hmm.
and then these rich
Yeah,
people
there's an
go out
old
hunting.
sci-fi story about that.
I mean, I'm not saying that's
exact
far-fetched.
thing. The Island of Dr. Moreau, I think it is, but it's basically like that same story. So I don't think it's far-fetched. I don't think it's far-fetched to think that stuff goes on.
Yeah, so like if humans do that to each other, then this Lacerta species, this reptilian species could do it to us. But like Lacerta was saying, there was two types of species. They are the native original reptilian species, and then there's another species called the Draconians that are, they don't know how they got here. They just got dropped off. They don't know how they got into this universe.
Uh-huh.
They just appeared, and they are on a tyrannical rampage because that's like their nature or whatever. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube of these people
I've seen those
shape-shifting.
shape-shifting ones. That is trippy. Like somehow you're in an interview and you have like cloaking ability, but sometimes it like wears thin, so like your eyelids go funny for a second. That is some crazy stuff for sure.
Yep.
Wow.
Jenna Bush was one of them. There was now this became a huge thing. So during the Obama administration, one of his security guards or his Secret Service members was like in the front row while he was giving a speech, and this camera, like, for some reason this Secret Service agent caught the attention of this cameraman, and he was filming him the whole time, and the Secret Serviceman's like bald, whatever, but when he turns, his ears look different, and then like his face kind of like ripples. It was weird, and like, and I remember that was like, where people are like, what is this? You know what I mean? Now, regular people, normies as they were called, like, they're just like, oh,
TV
that's just the camera glitching out and whatever. And it's like, yeah, right. But it's like really? Because like,
for sure,
he looks funny.
Well, there was a show a while back called The Event. There was like a few seasons of it, or maybe just, I don't know how many seasons, but it was like very interesting. I was sad when it ended, but it was like their son was in it, and it was all about basically like this alien invasion from within. So like all these people ends up being like these reptilians, like even in the government and stuff. It was a very interesting show. So it was called The Event.
Do you watch?
Yeah.
Do you watch any of the Marvel movies? So the in the end game, when the what were they called? They were like that other species. They were like the bat. They were like the shapeshifters, and they ended up being kind of good.
Yeah, I don't remember what they were
Um,
called.
it was
Okay.
Captain Marvel. They they were the ones like in Captain Marvel, and they were called the I forgot what they were called. But yeah, that is like reptilian. That
Mm,
is like those are reptilians where they can
right.
shapeshift into humans um, and look like us, except
Well,
like
and like in
they're
that
not
Lacerda
exactly
interview, it
us.
seemed
But
like shifting, they were just like mind boggling us into believing they were like human shape. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't actually physically changing their shape. It was like, say I'm like the reptile and I go up to you and I make you believe in your mind that I'm a normal human. And that's what it was like,
yeah,
more like I wasn't changing
right.
my physical shape to be a human shape. It was like I was somehow brainwashing you.
It's like in the vampire movies, of like the lure or the whatever they call that
Yes.
where they put you
Mm-hmm.
into that trance or whatever. Um, and the word
Scrolls.
I was looking for
Okay.
was
Right.
scrolls with Captain Marvel. Yeah, he said scrolls. Um, now, also the other end of this is instead of
Mm-hmm.
actual reptile beings, what if they are just
Okay.
reptile brained, right? They use more of their reptile brain, so that's where we get this, where we're thinking, oh, they're psychopaths because they
Yeah.
don't care about human life because they don't, you know what I mean? Like they're using their reptile brain, they have no emotion, no empathy. But I'm not saying that's bad either. I'm just saying that when there is a obstacle, they just whatever's the most efficient way of getting over it, that's what they do. And if it means taking out some of your own, that's what it is. It is for the greater good. It's for
Well,
the
and even
survival of the
in
species.
well, like we still have reptile brains in our human bodies that like apparently are in charge of all the automatic systems. So like your heart still beats without you making it beat. Your lungs still breathe, so on and so on. So that's like reptilian brain, the survival brain. So say you have a cardiac arrest. Say that
Yeah.
it's it will reserve oxygen for that basic functioning. And then that's why you could get global brain damage basically, because it's reserving all that for just those automatic functions, and then it's like not much oxygen is going to your higher capabilities, like your higher brain. So that's why you could like go in a coma and then
Okay.
maybe you wake up, but then you don't remember your family. You don't understand who you are because that oxygen kept you alive for a minute, but it wasn't enough to keep your higher functioning going.
So your brain like basically decided, well, to keep this alive, we're gonna
One
push all
area.
of our resources
Yep.
to what will keep you alive, but the rest will be
Yeah. Same
damaged.
with
But
like
that's the
hypothermia.
sacrifice.
That's why your fingers and will fall off because your core is trying to reserve the energy for your heart, where all your essential
It
organs are.
sends all that warm blood
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
your vital organs, right? Because your body can
Yep.
still function and
But you
live
can't live
without
without a heart.
fingers. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
difficult, but you can't live without a heart. But
Sure.
you can't live without lungs. You can't live without your stomach. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can't live without your brain. So um, yeah, that is interesting, huh? How it's like
It's
uh,
surviving. Mm-hmm.
surviving, right? Yeah. So in that Lacerda thing, it was like also talking about how for them to
Right.
survive, they went underground. Because whatever species came, which that was the Elohim, um,
Mm-hmm.
or the Anunnaki came down and took a primitive species, um, and probably a specific one or maybe multiple ones, and hijacked the DNA, uh, and advanced us through
Mm-hmm.
the evolutionary
Right.
chains to what we are now. Um, and then the war broke out,
Mm-hmm.
like you were saying. They left,
Yeah.
and there's an Ancient Alien episode that talks about that attack. There's also a bunch of scriptures, like in the Hindu. I don't know if it's in the Epic of Gilgamesh or in the, it starts with an M. It's like the
Okay.
Mahabharata or something. The Maha,
Mm-hmm.
but in their great story of whatever, they talk
Yes.
about a giant sky battle. We talk about it in in the Western world. Catholicism or Christianity is,
Well, and there were also
angels and
people
demons. That
like
was a sky battle,
flying
right? The
through the
battle of the
sky.
heavens.
There's mention in the Bible about sky things.
Right.
So
Right. Yep. 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 And so in all of these texts,
mm-hmm.
in all of these cultures, Native American, all of it,
Sky
there's always
vehicles.
something with sky, sky, sky,
Mm-hmm.
sky.
And so where does that
Yeah,
come from?
right,
And that's just
right.
their way to
And a lot of
explain it.
times yeah, yeah. Because imagine you didn't understand what a
Yeah.
airplane was,
Then it's just
and
like
then you
some
see
magic
one.
in the sky because
So
it's science you don't
the
understand yet.
yeah, right. And yeah, and the only way to explain it would be,
Giant
well,
bird.
birds
Mm-hmm.
fly, so it's just a giant bird. And then that's why all these things, maybe that's why these angels have wings, is because they saw flying beings, but they didn't understand what, maybe, I don't know, a jetpack was, or some type of levitation device or whatever.
Right.
They just saw, you know beings that kind of look like them flying in the air, and they're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
they have to have wings like birds because they're flying in the air. But they just didn't understand the
Well, one
technology. It was
thing I
just magic to them. Yeah,
absolutely
right,
believe
right,
about
right.
the ancient alien stuff is that there had to be some major injection of higher intelligence given to the human race or injected into our history because we wouldn't be because there's like a time when human evolution like exploded like in a way that wasn't natural. So I believe that
Right.
100% about that ancient alien theory. Like something otherworldly had to come and give us more advancement, or else we wouldn't be here as quickly as we were at this point in time. We wouldn't be like using technology in the way that we use it. Even now, even though it's not that advanced now, but we'd be way far behind where we are even now. But then there's also this idea that,
Right.
the powers that be, or whatever you want to call them, have had, like, we should be 100 years more advanced than we are, but they've kept all this technology secret from us.
Interesting on that. So I was like
Yeah.
listening to that Trump speech today, and I fell asleep during it, but
Right. The
he was talking
dishwasher
about
talk. I've heard, yeah.
dishwashers. And he was like, now the dishwashers,
Right.
go out and buy a dishwasher now, and they're way better because we took the
Yes.
restrictions off, or the restrictor off, right? So going all the way from an appliance like
Right.
that is in almost in every home now, to expand upon that,
Yeah, you just take the
put that
restrictors off,
in
and then
other
where are
products.
we at? Mm-hmm.
Then where we're at, right, we're probably
Mm-hmm.
no more batteries, no more cords, no more,
When you can keep
we're
all this
Tesla
energy
free
from
energy. And
us, from the masses, from like the normal people, under the guise of, we're protecting the planet. We're climate change, global warming. We need to keep you safe, so on and so on. So you're restricted. It's for your own good.
Right.
Like we
your own
decide
good.
how much of technology you can
Right.
handle at what times, and information.
Right. Yeah, government became God. Yeah, government became God.
Well, because
somewhere along
they
the line,
became selfish
government
and
became
want
God.
all of that for themselves because it's easier to control dumb people.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like, who cares if you're going to slow up evolution
And you get to
because
use all the
you get to
fancy shit
control it the
yourself
entire time.
and know all the best information. You get to know everything while,
Yeah.
Being like, oh, you people are so stupid. It like gives you a sense of power to know more than everyone else too. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And
Because
keeping
knowledge is
people
power,
stupid
right?
is the game of the powers that be, the elite, or like the government or people who try to be in charge of us. They want to keep us as stupid as possible.
Because, like, unbeknownst to us, we're actually more powerful than we actually really
because we're like
than
creators
we
of
really
energy,
know.
like, and light, and otherworldly things. Like, we don't even understand how powerful we are because we've just been dumbed down and poisoned with toxins.
Right. And, like, so they can't go full on 100% against us because that would suppress us to the max, and humans' ingenuity is our best tool. So eventually they would push us so far and we would figure it out and then understand ourselves.
Well, they
and we
need
would come
us
back
to
10 times stronger.
Keep them living, to keep producing stuff for them. So that because they're lazy, they don't want to be the producers of things.
Right.
They still need things. So we produce all this stuff for them. And then they give us just enough knowledge to do what, the task they want us to accomplish.
Like we were created to bear the labor
to
of
make stuff
the
and
gods.
do things and do all these tasks that they don't want to do themselves.
Yeah, that's so wild.
But then there's the idea of like, will we become obsolete if you could just turn everything into robots, like an animated world, automated system? Then what good are we to them anymore? And then that's what we're starting to realize, is that they're just using us and not letting us have all the knowledge. So I don't know. It's become kind of just a strange time.
Oh yeah, super strange time.
Because if you just have robots doing all this stuff that you whole planet, then we would be obsolete to them. So there has to be some other reason they want to keep us around. It could be for that shared consciousness too, like that thought stealing that we were talking about the other day. Like, I come up with the most amazing invention ever, but someone steals my thoughts. So maybe that's what they need us for. That's why they can't turn us all into robots, because they want all of our shared consciousness.
And they have to do it in like a very intricate and delicate way, so we don't know.
Yeah, we think
the
we're
gigs
just hanging
up.
out, going to our jobs every day, playing pool, talking, making dinner, whatever. I don't know.
I listened to this podcast and they talk about how the reason why it's the same plan over and over and over. That's why, like, right now, you can see the resemblance or the parallels of like Nazi Germany and what's going on right now, is because they use the same game plan over and over. Either they're not creative because they can't be, or why fix something
Or
that's not
it's
broke?
just the same story repeating itself. There's no way to have a different story. It's just the same. It's just different versions
Right.
of the
Yeah.
same story over and over again. And that's like the paradigm we live in right now. There's one story, and it's just the same story over and over and over and over again.
And then maybe that's why we find like these like, ancient tech, and we're saying it's aliens, but it's really
us. Or like, what if aliens are us in the future?
Right. Oh, so I'm gonna send you these other things, and it's 3 interviews with an alien supposedly, and the information is very interesting because it talks about our own destruction through our own religious dogmas, and that and that this alien species is actually an evolution of us.
Right.
We are its ancestors.
Yeah. That whole line of thinking is so interesting to me because, like the idea that time is not linear and that all things can exist at once, that's like completely possible that, that aliens could be us in the future. And then this one thing that I watched was like, so the alien, so humans somewhere way back became so advanced that they started losing all their human characteristics, right? They just turned into total like machine oriented technology, robotic, all this stuff, and they empathy, concern, anything that makes what we think is human, right? So then they decided this has gotten out of hand, so then they went back to like another time, like they started the time machine, or however time works, that it's not linear, but somehow they went back to before we turned into robots. They took some of us and spliced us with like their baby aliens, and then that's what makes the Greys. Is like Greys were hybrids of the old time humans from the time machine and the super technological aliens that wanted to get back to some kind of compromise. That was trippy.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know who's to say that's not real, or it is.
I mean, if we do get to a point where we do become more machine like, because that is a very like valid concept, like, because if you think about it right now, it's just, with the invention of AI and technology, machines, we are starting to realize that we are the obsolete product.
With all our feelings and,
the nature of
sadness or whatever, like that keeps us from, being efficient.
Like what if our emotions are actually our flaws? Like we were taught emotion to kind of suppress us when actually, because we're taught that our emotions are what makes us strong, but that would be a good art of war deal where it's like, well, you're turning your enemies
into
strengths
like mush
into
brains
their
where
weaknesses,
we're just like all crying over stuff all the time, like we see in modern day America. Everyone's crying when they don't get their way, and it's become kind of like a sad sob story, because that's not how competition works.
And
like,
that's,
you compete at something and you keep competing. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Like in the reality of competition, you don't cry and cry and cry and be like, I'm so sad, this is terrible, I need like a safe space to go cry a lot. That's not I mean, it's not going to help you be a better competitor in the future. That's for sure.
Right. Like us creating AI was us taking our flaws and bettering them and then creating a product with that. So we actually created our successor.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
The evolution, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the nature of evolution, right? Um so so we so so after a while, we take all of our flaws and we amplify them
Mm-hmm.
and we make them great strengths. And then we create a product. Well, we created
Yes.
the AI, right? Physically now we created, biomechs and um, all of this advancement in
Mm-hmm.
prosthetics and some of these robots out here from like Boston Dynamics and stuff, they're out here
Oh
doing like
yeah, like the
backflips and shit.
military,
Like it's
whatever,
crazy.
like fighting dogs or whatever.
Yeah.
They can run and jump and.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And those are the ones that are in the private sector or the commercial sector. Like we don't even know what they've been working on that nobody fucking has
Sure.
access to. Like a Bob Lazar
Mm-hmm.
S4 status shit. Um so um
Like what's
what if
going on
that
at Area
is
51, like in the sub levels right now?
yeah, right.
Something far
Yeah,
more
the
advanced than like the robot dog we've seen on videos.
oh, for sure.
And something
For
larger,
sure.
much larger.
They so I went down this rabbit hole, and I know this sounds crazy, but supposedly they have made machines that run off of human um,
What?
human flesh or humans. Yeah. So these machines, um, run off of what humans are made
Okay.
of.
Well, but why would
Um, and it's
why
just
would
like,
it
dude,
take a
that is some
human? Why
creepy
wouldn't it just
shit.
take like any organic creature? Like, why wouldn't a cow work in their machine?
Right, right. Well, I think the reason was because they designed it to
Yeah.
work off human.
Well, like what's special
Right.
about the humans?
Like that's total
That's
Terminator
like
Skynet
saying that there's
shit.
something special in us that.
Well, that or it's like, when you have a product that you're about to obsolete, why not use it for your next um, for
You're right.
be efficient with it, right? Like, instead of creating a whole new um, you know, energy supply or whatever, just do it off of your old product. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like gasoline. So people think that like when the battle for oil and whatever, it's all over
Right.
gasoline cars and whatever, and that's actually not true. It's gasoline is a byproduct of refining oil, so it's actually a waste
Uh-huh.
product that they didn't know what to do with. And Henry Ford got with some scientists and converted his engine model to
Mm-hmm.
go off of gasoline. So when we refine oil, gasoline is a byproduct, and they were just like putting it in like these giant
Dang.
ponds and burning it
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't know what to do with it. So now they have figured out what to do with it, and we will literally go to the pumps and fight over
Yeah, because
gasoline.
they've made us dependent on it. Like, this is how you get to places.
Right. So the amount of money they're making is almost 100% profit because that is a byproduct of what they're doing anyway, and they just don't know what to do with it. It'd be like in a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
reselling your people's leftovers. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
the scraps left on people's plates, you're making a
well,
meal
and they
out of that and then
also
selling
have
it to
these
somebody else.
companies coming and picking up like fry oil to make biofuel. That's some crazy stuff. So that's like, I
Yeah.
don't even know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
or like the corn and the ethanol. You know, ethanol is a byproduct of corn. So it's like, there's some people out here getting super rich
Off of like garbage, yeah.
off of waste materials, off of just straight garbage because they don't know what else to do with it.
And that's what it
but
is.
they do
Like
have marketing teams.
you make people believe they need to buy something.
Yeah,
that's what our consumerist world is based on, selling people that they don't really need.
Right. And we're out here like, wasting our days trying to like purchase the newest car that runs off of this like waste material.
Well, and any new technology that wouldn't use that, then they would suppress that. And that would be suppressed like immediately. If you, I've read all this stuff about people making cars, that don't run off gas, but we don't hear about those now because the oil company would buy that out and suppress that because they don't want people to know about that.
Even like these electric cars, like people don't understand, like when people are like, well, I'm going green and I'm going to buy an electric car. It's like, okay, do your research and find out where that lithium comes from. And most electric cars
require some gas too, from what I understand. It's not like just like full electric. Right. Maybe they made full electric cars by this point, but
well, like Tesla, right? But it's like, go research where that battery material and those rare earth metals come from, and it's going to lead you to some dark places. It's like blood, that's like blood diamond stuff in Africa. Yeah, it's like crazy. And then like the mining sites of these like, of like lithium and whatever are just fucking massive. Supposedly Mexico just got this, it has one of the largest lithium sites in the world.
Right.
And China just bought it. So, we have China at both ends of our doorsteps, or at the front door and back door, because they already bought out Canada's influence.
Well, have you seen
now they're in Mexico.
Those like pictures and stories of, say, like a giant trash heap of technological waste that like small children are like going through old iPhones to get like the precious stuff out of them? Have you seen that? It is like nuts. So apparently, all of this technology, like imagine a trash heap to the sky full of discarded iPhones. So then there's like small children from another country like going through this and picking out all the useful materials. So
okay. When I worked at Felt, Nate.
Yeah, I like Nate. He's a cool dude.
Do you remember Nate? So when he was going to school, because he was going to school for like chemistry or something, he had to do this project where he got all these computers and kind of like melted them all down.
Wow.
and retrieved all the gold out of it. I mean, it wasn't a lot of gold, but so you would need like thousands of computers to get anything worth of substance of gold. But if you had like this large landfill site that people, you had mounds and mounds of electronics and you melted them all down, or you had people go through them and take out all the little, the valuables in them, that I bet you that'd be a good little, that'd probably be a good little chunk of change.
Tons of people working for barely anything. It's actually probably a pretty good racket for sure.
Like, I didn't know this, but like when we throw our garbage away, like they just literally just go dump it. We actually sell garbage to China because they will just go dump it, and then these Chinese people will just go through it and separate it. You know how like we do like the recycling and garbage? Well, it necessarily doesn't stay that way because we just get tired of it and just eventually dump it all in one place anyway. So So when we do like recycles and
Yes.
stuff, well, that has to be even sorted through. So we will ship it over to China. So we will sell
And
barges
how
of
does this
garbage
make any sense too? I've heard this
China,
about
right?
chicken too. Like, say we have chickens, we send it over there, they repackage it and send it back to us. For to package chicken in China somehow. But yeah.
Well, China doesn't have the FDA regulations like we do, so they
Yeah.
can just put whatever the fuck they want in it, and then send it back to us
Exactly.
and be like, "Well, that's FDA approved."
Nuts.
Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah. We are just. If you think of us as a product more than a species, it makes more
Right.
sense. Things make more sense. It's like, oh, that's why they do that.
Well, and if you're thinking of us as a food
like
source, then
that's what that Lacerda says.
It's you just like let us multiply on our own. Like there's not 8 billion cows on the world, but there's 8 billion people, and we're just like doing their job for them, multiplying on our own.
Right. We are a product that manages itself, and for us to be as intelligent as we are to do some of these things that they want, you need a society. Even cows have hierarchies. Even they have community and whatever, and they just do it in their own way. We're a little bit higher up, let's say, like on the intellectual level, so we have another type of society, but it still has a hierarchy to it. It still has caste systems and rules and laws and whatever to make it work and go around. So when people are talking about well, we're just gonna extinct ourselves, I think there's something set in place where we will never extinct ourselves because we're too valuable of a product.
So like someone comes and intervenes.
The only way we'll extinct ourselves, right, when we figured out how to make nuclear weapons, is when we caught the attention of something that was like, yeah, they don't need to be doing that because that is too much. That is just too much. Yeah, it's even like in that Lacerda thing where she talks about how they just have kind of stayed out of our meddling or whatever, and but we work with them sometimes and they work with us to try to understand other things, whatever. But for the most part, we got the surface, they got underneath, and they're like fine with that.
Yeah, and that was cool. They have like light sources and lights. I don't know. It was.
And that kind of flows into the whole like hollow earth,
the tunnel system, caves, all that stuff. I fully believe there's all sorts of caves and all sorts of crazy stuff going on in caves.
And you you hear about that all the time. You know what I mean? It's also crazy how like
everything's
it
connected
just all
for
connects.
Sure.
Like there's like a little bit of truth and a little bit of deception and everything, and you just got to hear everything out, and then you have to decide what's truth and deception. And typically, what's truth are the when you recognize the pattern. So when this is in this story, and then it's also in this story, and the stories are nowhere near each other, it's like there has to be some truth in those. In that coincidence, there has to be some truth. All
the information. With a clear mind, like with no intentions to believe it or disbelieve it.
Right. Because a lot of people like automatically will like, dismiss information based on what they think is real, and it's like, well, you might have missed the opportunity
because
to gain
humans don't like to be uncomfortable, even in their own skin or even in their own minds, even for a minute. So when something makes someone feel uncomfortable, then it's like a barricade to them learning more stuff.
And
All it is information.
And all it is information. Like,
no, thoughts and ideas
like, is
should
it going to
not be
hurt you?
harmful.
No, I don't
That's
think so.
where
Like,
society has gone too far with too. Is like thoughts and ideas are
right.
not harmful. Is when you turn those into bad actions towards others. That's when thoughts and ideas become harmful. But on their own merit, there's no thought or idea that should be harmful to anyone.
Right. Like, you know, watching or listening to that Lacerda interview, or watching, say, Lord of the Rings, you know, both are some sort of fiction, but you also get truth out of both of them too. You know what I mean? But the Lacerda thing, you know, it's interesting when people just dismiss that right off the bat, because it's like, oh, that's not real. It's like, well, so what? Like, you
what's
watch
it matter?
movies, right? So what's it matter?
Or like something similar from reality, and today is like a Trump rally. Like, I think those are interesting as all can be. I think there's like coded messages in them. I think it's very interesting. I think it's so
there's massive coded messages.
But some people are so closed off to it that opportunity to actually sit through one and listen to that with an open mind, you know, because they've already have preconceived notions about what's going on. Right. So I think that's like modern day example of not wanting to hear, you know, all the information. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when like Trump talks, the people that don't like him, they're just going off of his body actions. Like today when I was listening to it, I just because I had on YouTube, I just had my headphones on and I just kind of set my phone aside and I was just listening to the information, you know. And yeah, like in my mind, I was like, you know, how his demeanor is and how his like hand gestures and how he talks and whatever. I could see how that comes off as like pompous and showy, dickish and arrogant and whatever. Showy, but if you think of, but if you just listen to his information,
what would happen if someone just read a transcript of one of those rallies? Because they have that online. You can look it up, like a transcript of whatever rally, because the information is interesting and solid, and there's a lot of good ideas in a lot of that information. It's not anything bad or evil or anything that people claim to think Trump's about, or what they thinking he is doing. I don't quite get it, but I think that would be interesting if someone just read a transcript.
Right. Or people that don't agree with Trump, it's like, just listen to what he's saying. Tell me why you don't like him. And like a lot of people can't even say a legit reason. They're just like, well,
yeah, give
he's
me an
racist.
example,
like, well,
or
he's never said that.
Out, or
okay, continue.
Show me a clip, or whatever you want to do for that argument. Yeah, it's interesting. All this stuff is super interesting.
Yeah, like
hate someone because society says I should hate them. That's, I think, a lot of what's going on here too, because it becomes like trendy to hate Trump, and I'm just like not into the trendy thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of these people have, you know, they just got stuck in an echo chamber, and then
and the liberal
that's where they think the reality lives, and it's like
strong. It's comfy and it's strong, and society perpetuates it because conservatives get shut down. They lose their jobs. They, you know, get threatened in their home.
Right.
Businesses get shut down. So that's, of course, why the liberals echo chamber of just their own ideas, because it's socially acceptable to for a lot of people in this society to be outwardly hateful towards Trump. That's an acceptable social idea, but liking him is not socially acceptable. So that's what creates that echo chamber. It's like a self-made echo chamber.
Yeah, right. And it's like they because like you're saying, right, people don't like to become or uncomfortable. So something that is going to make you uncomfortable, you're if you have a safe space,
Is only
an echo
people
chamber
agreeing
that
with. Yes,
people
yes,
don't
yes.
realize.
Of course.
Right. Yeah. People don't
Yeah,
realize that it's
because
not
it
good to
doesn't
be around
challenge
yes
your
men all the
thoughts
time.
and you don't evolve,
Like you
and
want to surround.
that's what I think
Yeah. Right.
champions do. True
Yep.
champions in life will put themselves in uncomfortable positions and be willing to fail and fail and fail and keep failing until you
Yeah.
succeed. So I mean, that's the spirit of a true champion, is you're not always going to be comfortable. Things are going to be hard.
Right.
You can't always win every match you play at pool. You have to keep succeeding, keep trying, and kind of like a resilient attitude.
Yeah. There's a
Yes, of
difference
course.
between winner and a champion. A winner can go through and remain undefeated the entire time. And yes,
Yeah.
there is something to say about that. Whatever. But also, also, if you lose your first match and then come back to the loser side and double dip,
Yeah, then you've had to work harder
the hot seat
for that
match,
victory.
that's a champion. That's a champion, right? Right. Right.
Right.
Because you had to go through a lot more adversity and remain, maintain composure and focus, and it took more for
Well,
that
and the
person to get there
undefeated
than it
person
was
may
the
have put
person
in
that
that
was
work ahead of time,
undefeated.
right? So they may have experience in all those lost matches and all those lost tournaments ahead of time. So there's something to be said about they did put in that failure cycle ahead of time before they went,
Right.
Ran through that last tournament, right? But there is something to be said about coming from a
Right.
loser and win that tournament, because you have to stay focused. You can't get down on yourself, because that's not going to win it. You can't start hating yourself. You can't start questioning your shots. You can't start what if, because that is a downward cycle. Like whatever you feed will grow. So that's a terrible attitude to have in that tournament. Like you lose a match, you have to just, move on. You can take what you learn from that, but then you just have to let it go somehow.
Right. Right. Yeah, and like what you're seeing now is just um a bunch of people on the they're just stuck in that echo chamber, and if they hear something that is not not along the lines of what they are trying to say, or what their information is,
Right. Even if
um
it's facts, even
even
if
if the
it's like
facts,
solid
right,
facts, they don't
they
want to,
can't
it does
they
not compute.
they can't handle it, right, and then you just get where they just shut you out. They
Shut
will
you out.
drown you out. They will. It's like, well, you can't even go down my path and see where I'm coming from.
Right.
And you're out here you know talking authoritarian and dictator and whatever. And it's like, that's what you're doing,
Right.
because you can't even see my end of it.
Right. How we have fun with words these days. How Antifa means I'm against fascism, but I'm really the fascist because you have to believe what I believe.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's just fun with
Right.
words. We can say we are whatever
Right.
we want. We can say we're a liberal. Liberal is open to new ideas, so on and so on. But if I have to believe everything you believe, then that's not a really liberal attitude.
Right. We're out here screaming social injustice and racism is bad. Yet in the same breath, we're like, hey, you white person, kiss my shoe because I'm.
Yeah, we're perpetuating racism.
Yeah.
So that's not super intelligent. That's not really what's going to help us succeed. What's going to help us
Right.
succeed is if we judge people on things they can control about themselves to begin with. Like
Right.
I can judge you on if you have a bad attitude or not, or if you treat me well. I can't judge you for something that you can't control about yourself to begin with. That's
Yeah.
where our society has gotten off the wrong track.
and it's like, and 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 one side is fueling that fire, and it's like, and that's the only questions with her is like, why is this side fueling the fire? Um, and they have no answers to it. Well, they have the answers, but they don't want to say the answers.
Well, I mean, in this current situation, I think it's because they're afraid of losing. They're like, it's like I don't know a nice way to say it, but it's like the death throes of a dying animal. Like that's when they get very angry and try to lash out and hurt people. Is like if you have an animal in a trap and it's dying, that's when they're the most dangerous.
Right. No, that is when they're most dangerous, right? And they're going off emotion.
Yeah, and it gets all emotional and this like heightened voice and fast breathing, and they can't get out the sentences like fast enough almost. It seems like, I mean, it seems very, talking to someone that is super on that side of political things these days.
Yeah, because they think that their emotion is their strength, but it's really their weakness.
Yeah, it is, because they can't calm down enough to they can't calm down enough to fight fair and fight with facts and words and
Critical
critical thinking. Yeah, the critical thinking goes out the window when you start screaming.
Yeah, right. And it's like just hear me out for 1 second, follow me for a second. Why is this doing this, right?
Yeah.
Now you're asking questions, and the other side is fighting back with statements. And it's like,
and don't like yes coach me. Don't be just like la 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 with your fingers in your ears while I'm talking either, because that's like you're like, fine, I'll listen to you for a minute. It's like, zoned out thinking about, what they'll have for dinner, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand it, but if someone really wants to get an idea through to me, I will like really take it upon myself to really feel what they're trying to tell me.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, if you really honestly want to communicate something to me as a human to human, then I'll do everything in my power to give you that time that you want to communicate it with me. I will try to put myself into your point of view, and I'll try to see your point. Whether I agree with it or not, at the end, I'm going to listen to it.
You're right. And that's like how intelligent people do it, right? They can entertain others' ideas.
Yeah, other ideas that don't, like, I think sometimes people are afraid of being, changing their mind. Some people are afraid of new ideas because they want to keep their mind the way they want it. They want to keep their idea. They're afraid like something might corrupt their idea.
Right? Because the environment that they created using those principles has created a comfortable life for them, and they don't want to disrupt it.
Comfort zone. Safe space.
But it doesn't always mean that it is the correct one. It is just what you have like tapped out on, right? You're like, life is so hard. I have somehow managed to get this far, and now I can,
now
for
I can
some
live
reason,
with these ideas. I don't need any more ideas. I'm good.
right? And I am tapping out to everything else because it doesn't matter, because I can, just autopilot now until I die.
Yep.
And it's like, that sounds like suicide to me.
But society helps people be like that. The commercials, the programming, the TV, all that shit they're trying to make you buy is like telling you, you can live in your little bubble. We'll help you. We'll supply that little bubble for you. That's why the liberals in 2016 can have a complete meltdown like, oh, this is so shocking. Trump won the election because the TV was time that he had a 2% chance of winning. So that doesn't compute with my bubble, that you've created for me.
Right.
So that's why it becomes such a stark contrast. That's why everyone freaks out, because that has been created for them is burst.
So going back to when we were talking about like Lacerda thing and like the reptilians, well, the reptilian brain,
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the reptilian brain right now is winning.
The reptilian brain is winning because it's just pure survival.
It's survival.
When you can't use your higher brain, then you're only trying to breathe and let your heart beat.
Right. So if we are collective and we do operate literally as one species, we are something is threatening our extinction, and if you think of humanity as one organism, something's threatening our survival. So what does it do? It resorts all to the survival part,
Mm-hmm.
or the reptilian brain, and that's why all these critical thinkers now and stuff are coming out. The Great Awakening or
Right.
whatever, because our species is on the verge of maybe killing itself, and now we are in survival mode, and that's why like the collective part of this is like, well, we need to ignite
We need to
these.
dive deeper. We can't just be focused on surviving day to day. We have to dive deeper to solve this
Right,
is like huge problem we have getting along with each other.
right, because at the end of the day, that's what it is, like people just not being able to get along with each other. People not being able to have conversations like we're having right now.
Well, and like back in the day of politics, like this would be the most exciting time in our country. Like election is like a fantastical event. It would be like the Olympics. Everyone would be super into it. Like you could be on one side, I could be on the other side. We'd go to like drinking parties. We'd all wear our shirts and our buttons and pins, and it's just like a fun time, you know. Politics
Right.
and presidential elections in the past used to be like kind of like a carnival or something, like
Okay.
like a fair repetition, like say like the kings and queens when you live at the castle, and then like every fall or every once a year for like a big party, like a harvest. So we have these rituals and like the Super Bowl and the Olympics, so on and so on. So the presidential election used to be something like that, and it's turned into a major hate fest at this point. Like it's not exciting, it's like scary to most people.
And all of your politics stuff is like smear campaigns.
Well, there used to be a lot of that too, but it was more there used to be smear campaigns in politics and stuff like that, but it was more like, I'm not going to hate you for wanting the other guy to win.
Right.
It's like, you want this guy to win, I want this guy to win. We can still be friends, but it's turned into such a toxic boiler point in our country that it's almost like we can't be friends anymore. Or one side thinks that if I think another way, they don't want to be friends with me. Of the
And
evil machine.
and it really happened during Trump.
Yes.
Like when Bush was running, who was Bush running against? Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't this when Hillary was running against well, no, like Hillary's first time running was against Trump.
Right. When like
but yeah,
Obama's running against John McCain.
yeah, right.
So what we're seeing is there was just as much evil or even more in those ones we've mentioned, but a lot of more people know about the actual evil and corruption because we're getting more information than we've ever gotten before about this. So we look back on that and be like, oh, that everyone could get along. It's not that big a deal. But we're actually seeing evidence of major crimes and corruption that's like earth shattering to the core at this point. And so ignoring that is just too much for at least half of the population at this point.
Well, and like the Trump, Bush, Clinton, Obama, they were all part of like the same, they were playing WWE wrestling where they were like on the same side behind the scenes, but in front of us, they were like, well, you're going to be the heel and I'm going to be the hero.
Right. Yes.
Type thing.
Yeah. I can see that and agree with that for sure.
As I was saying that, like all this time, and maybe it seems like this to me because I really didn't pay attention to politics that closely.
Yeah.
Up until maybe like 2-3 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
But it seems like Nancy Pelosi came out of nowhere. She just like poof.
Well, but
was a thing now.
She's like some old time crony that's been there for 40 years. So
forever, right. She's been there forever, but where's she? Like
she comes out of nowhere to play this fantastical role of like this crazy evil witch at this point, or like maybe the crazy superhero to a different side. Because there's some people that think she's like right on cue. She's just like top notch, super great lady fighting the president.
Yeah, it's just so wild how like so many people literally are like, if Trump wins, you're going to see some liberals probably commit suicide.
Well, and that
because they're like, my life's over, and it's like, what are you talking about?
And that's what's gone on with the communization of our school system and the children and the participation awards and all that stuff. Like, people cannot handle competition in a healthy way, first of all. So it comes to that, and it comes to, that's not how adults handle things. Like, if you lose something, then you go back to the drawing board and try harder to win again. But what they've done this whole time is not helping them win this time. They've just been crying about it and trying to defeat the president, when what they should have been doing is focusing on trying to win this. But I think they've known since running Hillary Clinton that basically this one was lost to them too. So I just think we're just seeing a big, huge bubble collapse. And it's very true what you're saying is there's going to be another major meltdown. But what I don't understand about it is how you can keep being shocked about the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And like, you've done nothing positive to make it better. You're just going to keep being shocked. Oh, I'm so shocked. Oh gosh, how did that happen? Oh, I'm so shocked. That part doesn't really make sense to me.
You know what like doesn't make sense to me either is how didn't the left or I should say the DNC, how didn't they lose a high percentage of their people when they fucked over Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, it's interesting because they've taken this like tribe mentality, like the vote blue no matter who. They just decided that they're going to hate Trump no matter what it takes, and no matter what kind of nonsense candidate is presented to them, they're going to do that. But if you look at it, Bernie Sanders is actually what their party pretends to be, the progressive party. So anyone who is actually critically thinking about that and actually witnessing that go down in real time would say, wait a minute, why wouldn't he be the choice? Why wouldn't this is exactly what we claim, we're screaming stuff, all of this stuff. Right. This is Bernie's jam. Instead, we're going to let the party be run by these career politicians that really aren't true progressives. They're just faking it.
And instead of being mad at their own party, they have to be mad at something, so they choose Trump, even though it's their own party they should be mad at.
It's their own party they should be mad at because the way they screwed over Bernie Sanders. But then you also kind of only feel sorry for him that first time, right? You kind of only feel
Right.
sorry for him that first time because he runs as an independent, and then the second, or he runs as an independent most of the time, or that's what his party is, right? Oh, I'm an independent. Then he turns into a Democrat to participate in the presidential election. So that would have been one thing if he remained a Democrat after that. But the second that Hillary Clinton won, that he conceded the electoral, the nomination 2016, because that was some
Right.
real shit that went on with that too, with the delegates and the electoral, all the election, the primaries. So when that was conceded to Hillary Clinton, then he goes back like the next week to be an independent again. So then you only kind of feel sorry for him that first time, right? And then he has 3 houses, and he talks about all this stuff that he doesn't practice in real life. So then
Right.
you kind of can't feel sorry for Bernie Sanders getting screwed over again, trying to
Right.
just be a Democrat when it's not, because we have a 2-party system.
Yeah, it's it almost makes you think. It's like, is all of this just a show?
Is all of it just a big, giant movie we're watching? I mean, it's not really out of the realm of possibility at all.
And
because there's heroes,
Trump
there's
is
villains,
either
there's
right,
side characters, there's this.
There's the climax. There's the
the circus clowns like that
it's
AOC and
yeah.
the Ilhan Omar. Those are
Yeah, right.
the fantastical. What are you talking about characters?
And it's like all of these people, are they in on it?
Are they in on it?
And
are they reading from a
and
script? Has this script been decided a long time ago?
And if so, the Trump character, is Trump part of this elaborate thing because they realized that humans were getting smarter, so they needed something a little bit deeper to keep us distracted. So Trump's job was to actually, control all of these critical thinking, paranoid type people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he's doing a fucking really good job at it.
This is a psyop. It's like one of the most intricate psyops ever perpetuated.
Ever. All the way from the Q stuff to all of it is like
to
the
bringing
biggest
in the
psyop.
outsider that was a businessman, and there's this movie script idea, oh, he has all these ancient enemies, he's coming back to settle scores. I mean, it's really the stuff of movies.
Right. And it is funny because it was one of them. Trump was one of them.
Or there's a theory that he's been a double agent this whole time. I mean,
the whole time, right?
I mean, no, there is really no telling what actually is happening right now, but I feel like it's very interesting and exciting.
Because there's no way one of us could ever do that. There's gates that you got to pass through.
Well, okay, yeah, but then there's this whole time travel aspect and looking glass stuff, and it's has this been planned for all time? Is this part of the story? Because I kind of believe that where we are right now is in some part of some big book somewhere, like the Akashic Records, right? So talking to you right now was already known 1,000 years ago, because that's what happened. And it's once something happens, then it's written in the book forever. And then, but it's also everything that's ever happened, will happen, has happened in the past. It's just meant to be.
Well, and instead of thinking time as linear, like you were saying, think of it as a sphere. So So this timeline is just happening, but it's also happening infinite amount of
Yep.
times with a little bit of difference in it. And that's where you like do your like multi-dimensional,
Right.
multiverse, whatever. But so everything's happening all at once. Um, so like our story can't vary that far from the original
Well, and
story.
I've always thought about this
But
with that multiverse thing is like each decision makes it a new universe, but like how I am in this universe right now. Like, how is it I'm not in the universe
yeah,
where, say, like, my dad didn't die? And that's a whole nother universe. Like, why is it that all these choices and things that happened up to this far, why is it this one that I'm in?
right. You want to hear something crazy that
Yeah.
I would do is so for a while. So deja vu. Everybody knows what deja vu is because we all experience it.
Right.
Well, during deja vu, when I would catch myself experiencing it, because you can catch yourself experiencing it, right? I would do the opposite
Mm-hmm.
of what I was about to do.
Okay.
So I've literally sat groceries down in the store and walked out.
Okay.
And like doing that I probably did that for like a year. And now I live here in Denver, Colorado, which I never thought I would ever be
Yeah.
living here. Cause like I'm from a small, I'm from Butte, Montana, small
Uh-huh.
town, whatever.
And like every
And
single
you
choice
know,
you made led you to be right here, right now.
led me to be
Uh-huh.
right here, right now.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about that sometimes, and sometimes it like blows my mind where I'm like, if I would have not done that with my deja vu, would I still be in Butte right
Right.
now?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you get little glimpses or something that nudges you in a certain direction. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then it's like, would I be doing would I be doing this podcast now? Would I be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like
Uh,
if I never started playing pool, then what?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Interesting stuff.
Meeting the people you have, especially the people that have been like
Right.
important to you. You know what I mean? Would you have ever met them? Would you have ever, would this have ever happened? Would you have died 5 years
Or
ago? You
were
know
there
what I mean?
certain
Because of
people that you're just supposed to meet? Like, say, my one good friend. Like, there's certain spaces we were at the same space and time before we ever met. So it's like somehow we had more chances than most people have, if that makes sense. Like
yeah,
there's people in the world I would never have one chance to meet, but somehow my friend Sam, I have 5 chances to meet that one person. So how does that
okay,
work?
right.
I mean, it's just intense because what are the odds?
What are the odds?
And like,
Right.
say I'm really supposed to meet you, then maybe that little deja vu feeling would have nudged us in certain directions several times until we eventually meet, even if, say, neither one of us played pool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome stuff, though. Awesome to think about.
This is for the lost ones, the ones suffering from exhaustion, life beating down so you still playing cautious. I need you to search deep inside of your conscience, unleash whatever monsters are keeping you from your progress. I know that you gon' find a way, never give up, tomorrow could be the brightest day. Follow the light, and I promise you gon' find a way. I know that you gon' find your way.